Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight Byron Boldt's back. We are taking a look at Frank Zappa's 1970 album, Weasels Rip My Flesh. So let's get started.
Talking bands that no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome BM Boldt to the show. Tonight is yet another Frank Zappa episode. Tonight we are looking at 1970s Weasels Rip My Flesh. This is the 10th overall album from Frank. Yet another Mothers albums. We're winding down on the Mothers, but this is kind of a weird record because it's just not focused on studio recordings, but it's almost like 50-50 live studio, but it's just a compilation of tracks. I wouldn't say this is a fully realized album. Would you, Byron? I don't know.
It's a lot of leftovers, like the
leftovers. I don't know. A lot of people like it. I was looking online and a lot of people really think a lot about this record and they like it. I get it. But the Mothers are winding down. So this has a lot of tracks from 68, 69, some that start out in 67, but we're going to talk about that. I don't know. I'm going to throw it over to Byron, see what he thinks, but this came out on a Reprise Bizarre, a lot of jazz fusion on here, a lot of avant-garde. I'm going to talk about that when I hit my stuff. I'm not exactly know what Byron's going to say about this album, but this album's okay with me. It's not one of my favorites. I'm just going to say it's a little bit too out there. If anybody's watched this series, you know that I like Absolutely Free. We're only in it for the money. I like melodies, a lot of great tunes, tracks, and then I like it embellished by weirdness. This just has a lot of weirdness to me, which is fine, but some people dig it. I don't dig it as much. So Byron, let's throw it over to you. Let's just start going through the tracks. Did you get any on you? Which I think is very avant-garde, and I think it's a very bold opening statement. Not very accessible, but it is Frank. Frank does what Frank does. What's your thoughts on this one?
Well, this song is kind of interesting because depending on if you have the original version of the album or if you have the reissued CDs from
2012. Well, the 2012 should be the original mix.
Is the original. But if you have any of the other CDs, basically this first track is 3 minutes longer on the original CDs than on the original vinyl of the 2012.
How long was it on the vinyl?
3:43 as opposed to 6:51. So it's an extra 3 minutes on the
like the 87, the 80s CDs. The Rycos.
The original Rycos. 90 is this one. So
okay.
But yeah, so it's basically, it was called "Did You Get Any on Ya?" But they also call the second half, the extra 3 minutes, Charles Ives. That kind of comes into play. That was on another album of his that was later released. I think it was on one of the "You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore" CDs. There was Charles Ives on that. Essentially, the Charles Ives version of this is from. I got my note here. I'm getting. Okay. It was okay. So the Beefheart album, Trout Mask Replica, there's a song on there called "The Blimp."
Mm-hmm.
The backing music for "The Blimp" is actually a song called I don't think I wrote that down anymore. Also, it's also just Charles Ives. Okay, but that was a studio recording that they used on "The Blimp." This is a live version of that track, and it's called Charles Ives. But that's, like I said, the last 3 minutes. The first part of the song, though, it starts out this real fast double time almost, and it's like free jazz. I mean, you kind of mentioned this avant-garde.
Well, it sounds avant-garde to me.
Yeah, and it's like free jazz at times too. And then what's weird is after a while, Lowell George comes in and starts speaking with his German accent, and he did that on Playground Psychotics as well. There's some audio of that. Zappa kind of had a thing about Germany, it seems like, because like on the Yellow Shark, they've got a guy with a German accent. reciting some stuff.
Mhm.
And then, like on the song Sofa and Stick It Out, the lyrics are in German. So he really kind of liked to throw some German stuff out there once in a while. Um, and then in the middle of this song, you also get like where Zappa would he be conducting the members in the band to make different sounds and noises with their instruments or their voices. So a lot of that's going on, and you get uh, Roy doing his falsetto vocals here and there. Um, it's it's not my favorite song on here though, but it's very experimental.
Yeah, I don't.
That's my thought on it. Right?
I mean, for an opening track, I think it's. I don't know. I would have picked something else, but I'm, it's just I'm just not into this record as opposed to the other records that we've looked at. Just something about it. I have to be honest. Everything. Certain things do certain things to certain people. So, but yeah, I'm not really much into that track. But I do like track 2 a lot better. Directly from my heart to you.
Mhm.
From July 1969. That's a studio track. I
Yeah,
think
was that was a Hot Rats studio track, right?
I don't know,
I
but
think it is because it's Sugarcane Harris all over that
Sugarcane
singing and
Harris is all
playing,
over it.
and he's all over Hot Rats. So I think it was from those same
So
sessions.
is it Sugarcane Harris doing the vocals? Who's doing the
Yeah,
vocals,
it
or is that
is.
Roy?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
not
It is.
Roy, is it?
It's Sugarcane doing it, singing and violin, as my
But
understanding.
I
For
like it.
for years, I wondered that as well.
I like
Yeah,
this track though. Um, it almost could fit on Reuben. Almost. It's in that, it's kind of that
it's a
blues,
slow blues.
slow blues. It could have fit on Reuben and the Jets,
I believe it was
but
written by Little Richard as well. Richard
it
Penniman.
is Richard Penniman. That's Little Richard. But you know what I've noticed about this record, and I'm talking about the 2012 CD, which I think all the 2012 reissues are phenomenal. That's really all you need. Phenomenal. It's amazing that all these tracks, I don't know if you've noticed this, all these tracks are all recorded from different sources, but when you play them and listen to the record, everything sounds like it fits. Did you notice that? For some reason, it all seems to
There's
blend.
a there's a lot of variety to this
Yeah. I'm
album.
not saying as an album it's
It's not.
cohesive,
Yeah, it's not cohesive. I guess it's not really cohesive, but
but it does. I thought that the sound quality on it, I like it. I like the way it sounds
yeah,
and everything fits.
it bounces all over the place,
Oh
man.
yeah, it's just like a collection of tracks. It's not an album really. If we're thinking like Sergeant Pepper's an album or Tommy or We're Only in It for the Money, you can't take We're Only in It for the Money apart. It needs to maintain
Right.
as a I know we've got the comps where they've plucked tracks out, but I think it stands as a artistic statement. This record I don't think does. It's just a bunch of stuff, you know. Again, don't burn my house down. Don't burn across in my yard. Just say it. It's not quite up to what we were used to. All right, anyway. But I do like track 2, and to
Yeah.
be quite honest, Don Sugarcane Harris, I dig his vocals. I think he's great.
What was the band he was in way back, like in the late 50s? Don and somebody it was
I don't
called,
know.
like Don and Dan or Don and
How did
somebody.
how do you know how he came to collaborate with Frank?
Frank just loved him because he was from
Era.
that era of the doo wop,
And he
and
loves that shit.
he loved it. So he was a big fan of some of the Don and whoever the other guy was. I think they had a big hit that Frank really liked, and Frank kind of
Either
like
way.
Johnny Guitar Watson, kind of the same deal.
Mhm. But anyway, I like track 2. You like track 2? You dig
Oh
that?
yeah, it's one of the highlights of the album, I think.
Yeah.
It's
As we go through
totally
this,
unlike everything else on this album.
you do?
No, it's totally unlike the rest of the album, though.
Well, no, when we get to side 2 though, I think side 2 of the record's much stronger than side 1. That's my opinion, but it's a little bit more accessible. But we'll get there. Anyway, go ahead. So let's look, but you dig track 2.
Yeah,
Anything you
I
want to
did.
add to that?
Yeah. No,
All right, we're
it's a
good.
really nice song, man.
Well, let's look at track 3, Prelude to Afternoon of a Sexually Aroused Gas Mask from 1968, the Royal Festival Hall, London. Here we go back to that whole avant-garde screaming thing. It's almost like part 2 of track 1 to me. I'm not really into it. It's a little bit too out there. What do you think about this track?
Yeah, it's all over the place again because this is like a live collage from different shows, and you know, it starts out with just keyboard noise for like a minute or so, right? And then you get into this heavy short saxophone solo,
Mhm.
and then you get more Frank conducting vocals. You know, Roy's doing these weird hysterical voices. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And
In my notes, I put screaming, so you can
yeah,
call that
it's like
historical
a
notes or
woman
screaming.
hysterically screaming, kind of what it sounds like.
I'm
Because
not into that. I
you
don't
get that
know.
real high voice. And then you get into this quiet section with keyboards and I'm going to call it snorking. A lot of
Okay.
snorking on
A lot of
Zappa
snorking.
albums.
Yeah.
And then other thing, Frank seemed to have an obsession also with gas masks. He would refer to those occasionally, and or there'd be like in the artwork there'd be gas masks on some of the albums. And
Mhm.
I guess as a child when he was growing up, his dad worked for the government. And they made chemical weapons or something, and they lived close to the base, and so everybody who lived around there had to have gas masks in their house. So it was kind of an obsession with him as a kid too. So
Well, who doesn't like gas masks?
it's a strange song.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it a song really? I don't know.
Yeah,
I sound awfully harsh on this record, but I just not feeling it. All right. Anyway, uh, track 4, Toads of the Short Forest from 1969. Hey, we got another studio track, instrumental. 1969. So is this Hot Rats? Is this Uncle Meat? What are we looking at? What do you think this is
it
from?
sounds like it's something that could be from Uncle Meat, really,
It
because
sounds
of
more,
the
that's what I
drums,
wrote, Uncle
the
Meat.
percussion. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's another track that I'm not digging. I'm not digging, but I made a note on my notes to mention that I do like the way it sounds. It's a great recording. The whole thing sounds great, but I'm just not crazy with the instrumental track. What's your thoughts on it?
You know, the first minute of that track is very melodic in the studio, and it's really nice, I think. But then it switches over to live after that first minute, and it's just
Yeah.
and then it reminds me a little bit of the beginning of the first track where it's this real heavy drum bop 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 bop, you know, like a double time kind of thing, and real heavy, and it's doing that with some noisy saxophone, very free jazz or avant-garde again, and then it gets into a polyrhythmic section where everybody's playing to a different um, everybody's playing to a different time signature, and
Mhm.
Frank's saying, oh, the drums are playing in 7/8 and the bass is at this, and you know this is at, you know, 10/16 or whatever. So he's telling you what everybody's playing at, and it's just kind of a mess, but it also seems to kind of work.
So it's a mess, but then you find it cohesive at the same
Yeah,
time.
it works. um I
I,
prefer the beginning of the track though.
I prefer the beginning too. Yeah, I understand you can mix all these time signatures up and they'll eventually come back
It
around
adds
and
up.
meet in the middle. They will meet in the middle. I think it's brilliant. It's just, I don't, I, I appreciate it. I just don't need to listen to it again. Um, Boy, I really sound harsh. I don't mean to be. Well, I
Well,
gotta be honest
I
though,
can't
but
wait to get your
to be
score.
honest in these reviews, I have to be
Oh
honest.
yeah.
So number 5, Get a Little from February of 69, recorded at the Factory, New York City. Improv instrumental, I'd say.
Yeah,
Um,
just a slow instrumental with basically a guitar solo playing over the backing. It's nothing fancy to it.
right.
Best part is Motorhead at the beginning talking about I get a little from some chick.
Is that Motorhead?
Yeah, get her pants or whatever he said.
That's what he
Get a
said.
little.
Ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, you couldn't put that track out today. I'm just how do you feel about the guitar solo? How do you feel about the track? Do you
It's all
dig it or
right.
it's okay?
It's not memorable at all. It's fine,
Well, the
but it's
thing is, we're
nothing.
looking at this record. It came out in 1970. I think is if you think about the level which Frank is running, of course, you know, after he passed away, all this stuff was released. I just think he's in a bit of a period right here. It's like a transitional phase. So I don't know because of his uh record contract that he put these together. I don't know. Would need to dive in and find out. It just feels like it's almost like stuff just to satisfy a recording contract.
I think he stayed with the same label though.
I
For
mean, it's his
He
label,
stays
but
on Bizarre Reprise, I think, after this. So it was probably, well, shit. I already got all these songs in the can. If they're going to put them out for me, I might make some money off of them.
yeah. Well, in the chat, in the comments, I do want to hear from you. Byron and I want to hear what your thoughts are on this record. I love Zappa. I love the Mothers, but we do want to hear from you just because I like side two a lot better, ladies and gentlemen, but we do want to hear from you. We want to get your thoughts. So please let us know, for God's sakes.
Well,
Um,
one other thing we haven't really touched on a whole lot was, I think you mentioned it on a prior episode, though. At this point, prior to this, he had recorded what he wanted. It was called No Commercial Potential.
mhm.
And it was supposed to be like a 12 box set or something of all kinds of stuff. And this material and Burnt Weenie Sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
all that material on these two albums was supposed to be a part of that, from my understanding, that box set. So he's just trying, and they wouldn't release it. So he's like, okay, well, here's one of the 12. Release that. So I think that's kind of what he's doing here too, is just trying to get some of that music out the door that he had wanted to be in that box set.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm surprised they never actually put that box set out because it probably was done
I
in
think
the vaults.
other stuff on there has been released since then, as like probably ahead of their time. Maybe some of the Playground Psychotics. They've released so much stuff since he's died, so I'm sure a lot of it, and some of it was probably on that. You can't do that on stage anymore. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, but what he compiled,
Yeah,
that
the way he
it would
compiled.
be the way he compiled it would be kind of
Same.
cool.
It's the same deal with Lather. Where they wouldn't release it the way he wanted it, so they released it as Studio Tan Sleep Third Orchestral Favorites, and then after he died, then they finally released Lather the way he wanted it. So
Yeah. It's all right. It's cool. It's good. All right.
that's side one.
That's side one. Side two is where I think things really come together. I like side two a lot better. Um, well, the Eric Dolphy Memorial Barbecue, which is an instrumental from June of '69. A&R Studios. It's a studio track. It's almost jazz until the track unhinges and becomes a noise fest and goes into avant-garde mass. I
I
like
used
the
to
way it
hate
starts.
this song.
I like the
I
beginning
used
of
to hate
it.
it. I used to not like it
Why?
at all.
What about it?
I don't know. I personally enjoy it a lot more than I used to now.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't like it for years, decades.
I
Maybe
mean,
I thought it was a little long and kind of weird, like you said.
I just don't think this is a good. See, the sequencing on this record kind of drives me crazy, even though I think it sounds great. But to open up the album with "Did You Get Any on Ya?" and then open up side two with Eric Dolphy, I don't know. I don't think that's how I would want to open the record up. But whatever. I'm anal retentive, so it's okay. But do you like the song better now than you did?
Yeah, and um, I really like the beginning of it, like you had said. It
Yeah, the
starts out
beginning's
great.
great.
Um, when I listened to this just the other day, I was listening and I'm thinking, the introduction to it reminds me of something that would have been on Sleep Dirt or Studio Tan, instrument wise, and just
Mhm.
the way it sounds. A lot of vibes to
Mhm.
it. And I was like, this could have fit on there until still things are changing in the
I mean,
song.
it starts out great and then
Yeah.
it goes out of control, and I'd lose interest.
So yeah,
I
because
don't know.
like that the beginning part is only like a minute and a half out of the 7 minutes,
Hmm.
and then it goes into like this real loose jazzy drum section. It seems like, with some saxophone and woodwinds. Then they start howling and laughing after a while. Then they
There's
kind
a
of get
lot
back
of
in.
Byron. There's a lot of howling, a lot of screaming. There's a lot of yelling on this record.
But after that, it kind of goes back to the beginning again. Not this, it doesn't sound the exact same, but they take some of those same themes and they expand on it instrument wise and music, musically. But then it gets into this rave up section, which just kind of comes out of nowhere. And then the ending is just totally random and just all kinds of
Yeah.
different stuff going on. So he kind of loses me the last 2
Me
minutes or
too.
so.
Me too. It's just too haphazard. I understand it's all experimental. He's doing what he wants to do, but sometimes things work. Sometimes things don't work. And for me, this doesn't work. But I must say, for the rest of the record, things start working for me.
Okay.
Dwarf Nebula Professional March and Dwarf Nebula Instrumental, 1967, December 67. So would that have, to me, when I listen to the tonality of it, it sounds like Absolutely Free. The reverb on it, or it could be Uncle Meat. There's a lot of overlap, but you can tell it starts out in that era because it does fit with the tonality of those records. So anyway, this is December 67 to February 68. So they worked on this over a period of time. This is a studio track. I like it. It's an experimental collage almost. So it does sound like an outtake to me because obviously they never used it. It didn't make any record. But when I hear it, I'm going, yeah, that sounds more like it to me. But maybe because I'm so used to the chaos that came before, when you start to hit this.
Well, this song is very, very, this thing is composed very meticulously because I had to research this. There's a great website that kind of lays all this out. There are at least it's a 2 minute song is all, but the first 45 seconds of it, there are 4 different melodies that are occurring, and he doesn't, and and what he's doing is he's playing 2 of those melodies together at a time, but then he's combining them differently in the sequence. So you don't get the same 2 melodies playing together at the same time because it's just kind of a random thing. He keeps switching it up, but it really works well.
Yeah, I think so too.
But then the rest of the song is just all these weird tape effects, like.
But for some reason though, I dig it though because it does fit in with Absolutely Free. We're only at money. It just sounds, and but those records work so well for me that I listen to this and go, oh, it's like this must be an outtake of that. Oh, I like that because I love it.
You've heard him do this, a lot of these tape effects on prior albums, but not to this extent, where they didn't go on for over a minute. They were usually just kind of a segue from one song to another. Where it's a minute 15 or so of just strange tape effects going on.
But for some reason it works for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish I could, I don't know, maybe I just love that era, and whatever Frank was doing then, he could do no wrong, and it fits right in. It's like a friend you haven't talked to in a long time. It's just like, I don't know. But obviously it's probably an outtake. He didn't use it, but he thought, we'll throw it on here,
Yep.
But you dig it because
it starts out great. The second half isn't as good, but I don't mind it.
Right. At least there's not any screaming. Okay. So track 8, My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama. I wrote in my notes, to me, this is the best track on the record. Total cohesive song. I think Frank sounds great. The guitar solo is great. And this was recorded February 69. So I'm assuming this is
Uncle Meat era then, right? I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look.
August, September 69. Wouldn't that, well, maybe. I'd have to go listen to it again because it was recorded at TTG Studio and probably is Uncle Meat, but I think it's best track on the record. What's your thoughts on this?
Wanted to put it. I don't think he really wanted it on Uncle Meat.
Well, I don't think it would fit on Uncle Meat, but I think on here it fits because it's just a mess of just shit. I don't mean shit, but just a random track. So I think it's okay on here, but I think it's the best track on here though. What's your thoughts?
It's definitely one of the more accessible tracks on this, and Directly From My Heart to You are most accessible.
We haven't got to Oh No yet.
Yeah, right. We haven't got there yet.
Which I think's fabulous. Okay.
Here's the thing about this track. You may know this, you may not. I don't.
I might not.
There was a single he released. I don't know if it was before this or after this. It's called My Guitar. It's the same song. Totally different arrangement. The single was a real slow version of the song. I shouldn't say real slow, much slower version than this version. So this one, like I say, it's called "My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama." This one's longer. It's kind of faster. It rocks a little harder than the single version. I think the B side on the single was a different version of Dog Meat. I have these tracks laying around on my hard drive, so I've heard them.
Well, did that single come out on anything
Uh, I
as
think
a
it was
bonus?
released. I think it was released as a single. Is it on anything?
Well,
You
I
would
mean,
think you
was it
would have
ever
got. You would think it'd
recorded?
be on a CD somewhere, but I don't know
Yeah,
that it is.
I don't. Yeah, it doesn't. I
It
don't
could be
remember it.
somewhere. It could be on something like a. It could be on like a. Oh, I don't know. It's not on any of the regular album CDs that I can think of. Like when
Yeah,
they did Absolutely Free, they put on um, Big Leg Emma and
yeah.
something
Well,
else.
you think they could have
Yeah, I don't think they
tacked
put
that
this
onto
on.
here for God's sakes?
Yeah, it might be on like Have I Offended Someone Lately or something like that, one of those compilation CDs, but I don't know. I'll research that.
I don't know, but if anybody knows, please list it down in the comments because we're just two dudes. So
I do
if you
have it on
do
my hard
know,
drive.
let us know. What? Of
I do have those tracks on my hard drive. I have like a
course you
folder,
do. Of course,
random Zappa, rare things that you can't find.
of course you do.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, this song, I can see why the other one was a single and maybe this one wasn't, because
Mhm.
this one has a section that's very atonal, which is like totally Zappa. It's like, wow, I wasn't expecting this section that doesn't even really sound like it belongs to be here. And then he follows that up with an acoustic solo, but then he gets back into the verse of the
Mhm.
chorus, and then he has a good electric guitar solo at the end, like you had mentioned.
I think it's one of it. I dig the solo. I think it's
So
how I
this
think
really
I
wasn't
love
cut
this
out to be
song.
a single. This arrangement was not really
No,
cut
but
out
I
to be
like
a
this
single.
arrangement. I dig
Yeah,
it. I
yeah.
think it's great.
So I think it's great too. So
All right, good. Then we both agree.
yep.
Well, we kind of agreed on a lot of it to some degree. Track 9, Oh No, from December 67 through February 68. This is the same kind of thing as Dwarf Nebula. Same era, same studio, same sessions. Um,
With Ray on
with
vocals.
Ray.
Yeah,
And this is another track that has that. It sounds like Absolutely Free, or we're only in it for the money. That sound, that tonality of those sessions. It doesn't sound anything like My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama, though I think all these sound great together, but you can tell this is from another time period. And, really, was it that long ago? No. But in the 60s, you have to remember things were moving very quickly. Studio technology was moving quickly. Um, think about it. Every Beatles album was different than from the last because everything was going like a million miles an hour. So if we've got a track that was started in 1967, this came out in 1970, a lot has changed. But I dig it. I think Roy sounds great.
right.
I like the song.
Could have been
And
a single,
it
but
could
it's
have
a little
been a
bit.
single.
It's probably a
Well,
little
if it
late
was
for
in
that.
1956, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
I dig it. So far, we've got well, I like Dwarf Nebula and Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama and Oh No, that trilogy. I dig it. I like it. I like it. So I don't know. What's your thoughts?
um. So yeah, like I said, this could have been a single at the right if it would have been the right time. Just a real nice, short, catchy vocal track. Um, Now originally this is on Lumpy Gravy as an instrumental. You go back and listen to it, you'll hear it.
Mm-hmm.
It's in there. Because Frank would do that. He would take a melody or a song and he'd reuse it. Sometimes he'd add vocals to it. Sometimes he wouldn't. He would just change it. But there's a few things on Lumpy Gravy that got reused over the years. Um, this was one of them. The song is actually he's kind of poking fun at the Beatles. All you need is love. Yes, I don't know if you've ever caught that. Because they say all you need is love. And he goes, "Oh no, I don't believe you. You say that you think you know the meaning of love. Is that
I
say
don't know. When Frank
you say
critiques the
he says
Beatles, I
you
don't dig
say
it very
love is all
much.
you need, right? He says it's a song lyrics. You say love is all you need. Well, no. So anyway,
Well,
so he
yeah,
is
but All You
poking at the
Need Is
Beatles a little
Love
bit.
came out in 67 and Flower Power Baby. This,
So he
Frank's
probably
not
wrote
into
these
Flower
words. Yeah,
Power, so
you're right.
he's an anti that. So of course.
So anyway, I like it. That's my take on that track.
All right, good. So we got track 10, the Orange County Lumber Truck. The track names on this just kill me. We've got another instrumental from the Royal Albert Hall 1968. My notes on this, I thought it was a wonderful instrumental and much more accessible. It's just I just need my Frank a little bit more accessible. And when it gets too far out, I lose interest. But this is good. I think this is great. Much more accessible. I dig the guitar solo on this as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
So far, side 2 is hitting it out of the park, except for that opening track. But
yeah, what I wrote, the first half of this song is very melodic, and parts of it remind me of that section that was censored in Harry Your Beast. Da, 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 da. And then he actually goes, I think there's a short piece part in here too where he's going back and revisiting some of that melody from Oh No, the prior song. So he's reusing that. So it kind of ties the two songs together, really, because he's repeating some of that melody in both. And like the second half is just a guitar solo, and it's fine too. So
yeah, it's fine.
I like the song. Yeah, I like it. And I don't know what we're going to say about the next song.
I think it's a mess. Weasels Rip My Flesh, recorded in May of '69 in Birmingham.
It sounds like the title.
It sounds like the title. It sounds like weasels ripping the flesh off of somebody. It's just noise. It's avant-garde. I don't know if there's really a song here, but it's 2 minutes and 5 seconds of noise.
It's apparently Don Preston putting his arms on the keyboard and pressing as many keys as he can at the same time. Plus everybody else making a bunch of noise on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just noise. I wrote down it's a nightmare to listen to.
It's a nightmare. So what I've learned when you go through the tracks, every opening and closing track is pretty much a nightmare. And everything in between's a little bit better. Well, kinda. Weasels Rip My Flesh, nightmare. The Eric Dolphy Memorial. It starts out strong, but it unhinges and goes into avant-garde. I mean, Give a Little's okay, I guess. Did you get any Anya? I think this album is, well, okay. Not one of my favorites. So far, after we looked at all these Zappa records, this is the first album that I'm just not totally in line with. It's just a little bit too out there, and it's not cohesive. It's just a collection of tracks. And that's fine. But Zappa, to me, always runs on such a higher level that I expected more out of him than this. Because it doesn't sound like a conceptual work to me. It's just, a compilation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe the bits are stronger than as the cohesive record.
This is probably going to be the lowest ranked Zappa album I've had so far that we've reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to mention a couple other things before we do that.
on a higher note.
So the cover here is pretty cool.
Neon Park.
It was done by Neon Park, who did all the Little Feat covers, or a bunch of them.
Most of them, I think.
And then, but the German vinyl had a different cover. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I don't have a picture of it, but it's online. It's kind of a green background with like a mouse trap. It's a silver mouse trap. I don't know, closing on a doll or something. It's everything's silver. The mouse trap and the doll are silver. Interesting, but I don't know why they did a different cover for that. And that was most of the extra notes that I had.
Yeah. Anything else? That's it.
And like I said, they said the 2012 sounds were better than the original CDs, which that's pretty much standard in all cases. But so for this one though, you get the 3 minute longer. Did you get any on you? Which may or may not be a selling point for Grant.
No, I don't. I could do without it. So let me ask you that you said that's the 1990 Ryko. Is that by the around the time? So evidently, since that track is longer, was that all remixed? Did Frank remix that or what? I don't remember. Reason I'm asking, I didn't know if he redid anything on there.
So when he added all that reverb, is that considered remixing?
Ugh, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
You could add that reverb in mastering too.
Yeah, I mean,
So
and
was
in
there
between
added
that,
reverb on there?
I believe there is. They all have added reverb from what I've read. Um,
Get the 2012 version, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just
you
keep
know,
it at that.
I've never heard. I don't think I ever owned. No, I did own this on vinyl at one time. I think maybe. So I don't know. Maybe I've never heard the original.
Hmm.
Although I take that back. I have the 2012s on my hard drive.
Okay, you've heard it. Shh, don't
So I
talk
have,
about that.
but I've never. I'm not the kind of guy who side by sides. Oh, which one sounds better? Whatever. I mean, we can say, oh, like with Ruben and the
Hmm.
Jets. Okay, those are two totally different albums. Where there's huge differences, and we're only in it for the money. Huge differences,
Yeah.
but some of these other ones, it's subtle, I'm sure.
Well, it depends what you want. I don't know. I'd rather have the original mix of Freak Out than not have the original. I'd rather have the original mixes of stuff and without added reverb. I'm not a revisionist. I'm not Billy Gibbons on that 6-pack CD set where he added digital drums
Yeah,
and
yeah.
drum machines on every track. A lot of people, when those 87 CDs and they were all jacked up and remixed and modern bass parts and drums, some people, a lot of people were turned off by that.
I didn't care because I didn't own any of those, and I was just glad to be able to get them on CD and
Yeah,
actually
because
own
I
it.
remember at the time, a lot of Zappa stuff was hard to get. And the fact that it came out at all,
Yeah,
people were going, holy crap. It was like a gift from God, because who
didn't
would have
get it.
ever expected this to come out, especially in the mid to late 80s, for crying out loud?
So
Well,
anyway,
Byron,
what did
so
you? What are you gonna give that
go
song?
with you. I'm going to go with you. What would you give this out of 10?
I hate going first.
I can go first.
You go first. Yeah.
Well, I think there's some great tracks on here. I think there's some tracks on here I could do without. I think as a cohesive album, it's not very good. It's stronger as individual tracks standing on their own. I'm glad that this came out, but this isn't a record that I return to. I just don't look at it as a cohesive album. I'm sorry. I was online reading some people's thoughts, and some people really dig this record. It's not in anybody's top 5. It might be in your top 8, but it's not in your top 5. Um, and it's definitely not in my top 5. I would probably give this. Uh, hmm, I would probably give it, because I expected so much more. Even though I've listened to this record and I know it, but I'm just trying to put it in context with everything that we've looked at. I guess I'm going to have to give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's consistent with you. Yeah.
Okay, because if I look at we're only in it for money, which is a 10 out of 10, I give this a 6, because it's not, I don't know, 6 out of 10 because of those.
That's your lowest so far.
Well,
Yeah.
and this is not bad, Frank, but I get it. We got to use these tracks up, and who knows why he picked them? I don't know. But here we have them, and I'm glad we have them. What's your ranking? What do you think?
Um, I'm going with a 6.5 tonight.
All right, well, that's not much different.
No, just a little higher than yours. But this is the lowest I've ranked an album of his so far. You had given Lumpy Gravy a 7. That was your lowest prior to tonight, and I had given
But
Ruben a 7.5.
okay, but when I looked at Lumpy Gravy, that is a conceptual work. It was something that he wanted to do. I know there are different versions of it. I get that. But it started out as a conceptual work. You see what I mean? So I have to look at it this way. This is just a compilation. This could have been, you could have released this as Frank and the Mothers rare tracks or throwaways or whatever you want to call it. It's packaged to look like a real record. a real album, but you know, it is what it is. It's fine. It's like Coda, Led Zeppelin Coda to me.
Yeah, kind of, that's right. This would be if they did a second coda.
If they did a second Coda, because
'Cause
Burt Winnie's Sandwich
Coda.
is part 2 of this.
Coda and Burt Weenie are the same,
Mhm.
and this would be Coda 2.
Correct. And you can quote me on that. And in the comments, what do you think? Is this the Mothers and Frank's Coda part 2? And Burt Weenie, is that Coda 1? I'm just throwing it out there. That's kind of the way I see it, you know? I don't know. So we got a 6 and a 6.5. That's not too far off, Byron.
You know, this is the third album that he released in 1970.
Well,
That and he released
yeah.
another one yet. He released 4 albums in 1970. That's insane.
Well, he's got a lot of tracks sitting around. It's
Yeah.
almost like Neil Young.
Yeah.
I mean, at least Neil's putting out one every year, but
He's still cranking them out.
he's still cranking them out.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an okay record, not great.
Gotta have it though if you're a
But
completist.
if you're a completist, you gotta have
Gotta
it.
have
So
it.
I'll leave it at that. All right. Do you have anything more to add? We kind of whipped through that.
No, pretty good. Went a little longer than I thought, actually.
Well, it's Frank. We have to
It's
discuss
riveting
it.
entertainment, folks. Riveting.
It is. We are riveting. We are riveting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we probably sum that up. We've got a 6 and a 6.5, and I'm not tallying them, but I'm going to say that's a 6.25. So, all right, I guess that wraps it up. What's our next Frank Zappa show? What are we conquering next, Byron? We're in
Well,
1970.
this is the
so
end
we're
of the
talking-
original Mothers. So
Yeah.
the next thing is Flo and Eddie era. I think the first one was Chunga's Revenge, right?
Yeah.
And
I
that
think.
came out before 200 Motels, I'm pretty sure. So
So
I think
are we going to
Chunga's
cover
Revenge.
200 motels?
Yeah, what the hell?
Okay, that's cool. I'm good.
There's a lot to talk about with that thing.
God, you know what? We're being so hard on it, and then I'm looking at the reviews for this. All Music gave it 4.5 out of 5. Robert Christgau gave it a B plus.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
know,
but they have better taste than we do, apparently.
I know, but I'm just surprised. What if? Oh, I can't find what Christgau said.
Maybe they said it was really groundbreaking. I don't know, but
You think it's groundbreaking? It
don't know.
could be. Maybe you have to put yourself in the context of when this came out.
Yeah. I mean, if you're into like Ornette Coleman or Coltrane's free jazz period, maybe you'd appreciate this a little more. I'm not that big on that era.
Steve Huey, who did the review for All Music, said Weasels Rip My Flesh ultimately the last track. He says Weasels Rip My Flesh ultimately invigorating. They also even make okay, sorry, let me rephrase that. Edit. So let's look at the All Music review just real quick, just to mention that just real quick. This is Steve Huey who did the review on it. He said that Weasels Rip My Flesh was ultimately invigorating. They also make the closing track a minute and a half of squalling feedback followed by applause, perfectly logical in the album's context. So he digs it. His review, he likes the record. I don't know.
He found something positive to say about the last track. So
Yeah, he said
he's reaching.
He's reaching. He said Weasels can make it difficult, incoherent listening, especially the first. But there is a certain logic behind the band's accomplished but there is a certain logic behind the band's accomplished genre. I can't say it. Genre. But there's a certain logic behind the band's accomplished genre bending and Zappa's gleefully abrupt veering between musical extremes without pretension. Zappa blurs the normally sharp line between intellectual concept music and the visceral immediacy of rock and R&B. I guess I could look at it that way. I just don't think it's.
There's a lot of variety to this record.
Yeah. So anyway, 6.2, that's what we give it. And like Byron said, up next we'll be doing, well, I guess next should be Fillmore East 71, I think.
No, I think it's Chunga's Revenge.
Oh, it
right?
is Chunga. Chunga's 1970, so we'll be looking at Chunga. Yeah, because that came out October 70, so fall is right in there, which I don't know, be interesting to see what people say, because I was just looking at reviews and this didn't fare as well as Weasels. I don't
A
know.
whole
We'll
different
see.
era.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally different era. All right.
I
Or
like
maybe
Flo
it's
and Eddie
Mark,
stuff.
maybe it's Flo and Eddie that brought it down. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people either love or hate the Flo and Eddie stuff, but I always kind of liked it. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll do Chunga's Revenge. Be doing that in, well, it's December. We'll be doing that in January. All right, Byron. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking to Zappa. I don't know. Your mileage may vary on Weasels Rip My Flash. I don't know. We do want to hear from you in the comments. Give us your thoughts on this record. We do want to hear from you. All right, Byron. I guess that'll wrap it up. We will see you back in January for Chunga. All right. Good night, everybody, and thank you.